Hi there, this is Aubrey Chauke. I'm a tutor of accounting. Today in our discussion, we're going to be tackling the rent expense. I've had a lot of questions from students who are struggling with dealing with the rent expense. So I'm just going to do this free example for you guys when you watch this. And then if you want personalized explanations, you can book your lesson on the details that will be displayed at the end of this video. So for now, let's just focus on what we're given. Now, the information says that HRK Tutorials is a business that was started by Aubrey Chauke in 2019. The entity provides visual lessons to grade 10 to 12 accounting learners in South Africa. Contact lessons are only limited to Mahikeng residents. The business rents the Mahikeng Community Hall to be able to offer contact lessons to Mahikeng residents. The financial period of the business started on 1 March 2019 for the current financial year. So they have already told us that whatever that we are doing, we must keep it in mind that our financial period is from 1 March to 29 February 2020. Although they did not indicate that, we know that a month it's supposed, the financial period of a business is supposed to be for 12 months. So let's start firstly by establishing the financial period. So we know that if our year starts on 1 March 2019, it's going to end, so it's going to be 1 March 2019 to 28 February 2020. Before you do anything in accounting, always make sure that you establish your financial period. This will make things easy for you when you start dealing with the transaction. Now, another thing that we must also try to do is to try to understand the type of business that we are dealing with. In this case, we are dealing with HRK Tutorials, which offers a virtual accounting tutorials as well as contact lessons. And then what we know is that contact lessons are only offered to the residents of Mahikeng at Mahikeng Community Hall. So already, since we are dealing with how to treat the rent expense payment in this case, we already know that we are going to be dealing with a transaction that applies to the Mahikeng Community Hall, because remember, this is where HRK Tutorials is hosting their lessons, and as a result of that, they have to pay rent. And whenever rent is paid, there are many things that can happen. Sometimes when you pay rent, you'll find out that maybe after a few months of paying, your landlord or landlady will come and tell you to say, we have decided to increase rent because of this particular reasons, and as a result of that, you will need to make some adjustments in your payment. If they are increasing the rent, you will also need to increase your monthly payment by that particular percentage that they are increasing your rent expense by. Okay, and now going straight into the information, we also need to be able to analyze the transactions. Okay, and they're saying that the following transactions took place during the year. Now obviously, because we're dealing with rent expense here, we are only given the transaction that relates to the rent expense, so meaning that all the other transactions that we were supposed to have, they were omitted because they were not related to the rent expense. So our interest here is just being able to understand how do we deal with the rent expense. And then one thing that you also need to be aware of is that when you deal with a transaction that relates to a rent expense, let me just write, when you deal with a transaction that relates to rent expense, you must be able to know how to deal with it. If there's an increase in rent, you must know how to deal with that particular transaction. These are the things that will normally be included in that particular transaction that you'll be given. So there will be an increase in rent, sometimes there will be a decrease in rent. Okay, and then another thing that you also need to keep in mind is that this particular rent expense transaction that you'll be dealing with will that rent that we are paying will it be accrued, or will it be prepaid? And then if it's prepaid, it means you must subtract. If it's accrued, meaning that is behind, you must add on the effects on your income statement when you show what's going to happen to that particular transaction. Okay, so we need to be able to play around this to use the information that we have to know what exactly are we expected to do. So now let's go to the information. They're saying information from this information that we're given as from the trial balance. They say it shows that the rent for the current financial period was paid for 14 months. So the moment I'm seeing 14 months, I'm already seeing a prepaid expense. Okay, prepaid expense. And remember, they're saying that by how many months? By 14 months. So this means that this rent expense on the calculations, I'm expected to show that it's prepaid by 2 months. So meaning that there must be 2 months reduction on the income statement. So there must be a 2 month reduction. And then remember that you are relating this to the payment, meaning you will reduce the payment that is made on a monthly basis. So you're going to subtract the payments by the payments of 2 months from the actual total that you are given, because it is prepaid. Remember, they say that for the current financial period, rent was paid for 14 months. And we know that our financial period is supposed to run for a period of 12 months. But then in this case, we paid for 14 months. So meaning that it is extra. Our payments are extra by 2 months. Okay. So we need to be able to take that into consideration when we deal with our transactions. So now on the information, they are saying that the rent expense paid for the year is 56,800. So this means that this is the total rent expense. This is the total rent expense that was paid by the business to Mahikeng Community Hall, because remember, this is where we are hosting the contact lessons. So we paid them for a period of 14 months, and then by accounting principles, we are supposed to pay them only for 12 months in that period, where in our financial period, we're only supposed to pay for 12 months. So anything that is extra, we must make some adjustments in our books. Remember, your financial statements, they contain information regarding things that occurred in the business within this 12 months that we are preparing the financial period for. So we are trying to keep everything into a period of 12 months. Anything that is outside that period must be subtracted. Anything that is short within that period must be added. If it's short, it will be accrued when we deal with expenses. And if it's outside that period, meaning that it's overpaid, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with concepts like overcast. So if something is overcast, it means it's overpaid. So in this case, they said that our rent expense was paid for 14 months, so meaning that rent was overcasted. So now let's go into the information and get what we need to do. And they're saying that the rent expense paid for the year, it's 56,800. So we have the total rent paid. Okay, and then they say the rent expense increased by 5% on 1 January 2020. So the best way to deal with this transaction, it will be to draw our financial period. So I'm going to quickly write our financial period here. So now we know that our financial period is from 1 March 2019 to 29 February 2020. This actually occurred during the leap year, so meaning that we had 366 days instead of 365. But then let's leave that. Let's continue with this. So what you do a timeline for your payments. Okay, so it's March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So, and then you have January, February. This is where our financial period is supposed to end, but then we are extra by 2 months, so meaning that we're gonna have February, we're gonna have March and April. So remember, this is, maybe let me use a different pen just to show that this is outside. So remember that this is we have March and April, right? And then these 2 months are outside our financial period. So we must therefore subtract 2 months monthly payment. But in this case, we must also pay attention to the increase. Okay, so we know we're going to calculate. Let's check first, when did this rent become increased? They're saying it was increased on 1 January 2020, so meaning that it was increased here. From here we were paying 1.05. okay, so meaning that it was 100% plus 5%, so it's one. If you take 105 divided by 100, you will get this this number that I've got here. So we want to check for how many months were we paying rent at 100%. So our goal is that we want to check how many months did we pay rent when it was only 100%, and then from there we also find how many months also did we pay rent at 1.05, meaning at 105%. okay, so I'm going to calculate the months from here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Remember, rent is increasing here on the 1st of January, so meaning that we're going to have 10x, and then we say plus. Now we want to find out how many months was the rent now at how many months was increased by what do you call it, how many months was increased by that particular percentage. How many months did we then pay 1.05%? So now we want to check how many months also did we pay 1.05, meaning that when was rent 105%. So they told us that it increased from 1 January, so meaning it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 4 months. So we're going to have 10x plus 4 you can just say plus 4 into x times 1.05, and then the answer is supposed to give you, I don't know if you remember that total that was given to us, that 56,800, the total. So all this is supposed to give us a total of 56,800. Okay, so that's what we're saying. We're saying that the 10 months of rent that we have paid plus the 4 months of rent that we have paid, and then plus the increase that was implemented, all in all the payments, they are giving us 56,800. I don't know if I'm making sense. So now you want to find how much was paid before the increase was taken into consideration. So if you work out this bracket, you realize that you'd have 10x plus let me just check something. 4 times 1.05, that's 4.2. So you'd have 10x plus 4.2x is equals to 56,800, right? So from here, what we're going to do is that we're going to group this together because the signs are the same, and even the sexes, so we're gonna add them together. What I remember in maths, okay, let me not get there, let me just do it. So from there, what we're going to do, we're gonna add this together. So 10x plus 4.2x is going to give us 14.2x, and then which is equals to 56,800. Okay, I'm gonna try to change the color. And now our interest is in finding what is this x that we're talking about. So the only way we can get this x is when we divide by 14.2. So we're going to have 14.2x divided by 14.2, which is equals to 56,800 divided by 14.2. So if we divide, and then this will cancel this, and then we'll be left with this, so meaning that x will be 56,800 divided by 14.2, which gives us 4,000. So this is the monthly payment that was made before the increase was factored in. So this is how much they were paying every month before rent was increased by 5%. So we have found the x, meaning that if we say 10 into, if we were to substitute for us to be able to get this, maybe let's say if we were to substitute what we have here, we should get this amount. So let's maybe try and see what we get. I'm just gonna plug in the information. So 10 into x, our x is 4,000, and then plus 4, maybe we can say plus 4 into, let's try it in this way and just put this as 1, plus 4 into our x, it's 4,000 times 1.05. Let's check. We're supposed to get 56,800. We want to check if our x is correct, so I'm gonna plug in 10 into 4,000 plus 4 into 4,000 times 1.05. I'm getting 56,800 as I said. So this means that for now we have managed to sort out the X that we're interested in. So now we know that rent increased by 5%, right? So we just want to get how much did they start paying from January, February, March, April. How much were they paying every month from January, February, March, April? And we know that our expense is prepaid by 2 months, which is what we want to subtract from our information. So we're still gonna come here, gonna try to go to the blue pen. So I'll just underline here so that we can show that we are now just doing something. Okay, so meaning that if we take 4,000, remember we are extra by 2. We are extra by 2 months, so we must subtract these 2 months. So if we take 4,000 multiply by 1.05 multiply by 2, we will get how much we are supposed to deduct from the rent expense. So 4,000 multiplied by 1.05 multiply by 2. Remember we are prepaid by 2 months. It's gonna give me 8,400. 8,400. So this is how much I'm supposed to deduct. This must be subtracted. Okay, so when we go to the information, I've shown how this what they want us to do is to show how this will be shown in the income statement. So this is the question. I did not read it. I just felt that it's something that students have done. They know what they're expected to do, but this is what we are doing. We are answering this question now. So when you show how the rent expense will be treated, you're gonna, after doing those calculations, you're gonna come here and say rent expense, and then you say 56,800 minus 8,400. 56,800 minus 8,400, which is 48,400. So in your teacher, when he marks, he will mark this part in this part, and then they will also look. Such transactions normally they cost about 5 marks. They'll also look for the part of the calculations, this part where I was showing how I will do my calculations. Okay, so we know that 4,000 times 1.05, that's 4.2. Now 4.2 times 2, that's 8.4, which is what we've done. Okay, so we've answered the first part of the question. Now they say shortly explain how the above transaction will affect the balance sheet. So remember here we were saying that this is prepaid. I get it. We were saying that it's a prepaid expense. I get it, because anything that's prepaid, that's paid before its time, or that's overpaid, it's supposed to be an asset to the business, because we have not yet incurred that expense that we have paid for. So we can still go there and claim that money back. So the prepaid rent expense, prepaid rent expense will increase. Now you must remember the notes to the balance sheet. So the prepaid rent expense will increase trade and other receivables. and other receivables by 8.4. Remember, it was prepaid for 2 months. 8.4, which comes from this 8.4, comes from 4.2 multiplied by 2. Okay, so that's all. That's how you were supposed to do this question. Rent expense is not really bad. You just have to understand what is happening. I hope that this lesson was fruitful and helpful to you. Should you have any question or need any assistance from us, please use the details that will be displayed at the end of this video to be in touch with us. God bless you.